In Australia, the Productivity Commission conducted a review of executive pay 2 years ago, and the law was changed as a result last year. The report found that executive salaries had grown by 250% since 1993. And joining us with more is Amanda Wilson, who's a corporate governance advisor. Amanda Wilson, the British Prime Minister says that shareholders should have more say over executive pay. Here, the government has brought in laws to do that. Has it worked?
Well, I have to say, Nicole, it's early days so far. We've only had one season, and we do have to see two to see if we are going to have any votes to spill boards. But I'd say so far we've seen a greater willingness to engage with the investment community, to talk about remuneration plans, but also to think about explaining why they've chosen particular paths. The only issue I'd have with that is that when they do bring a remuneration report to us, it's already decided. So I think what we'd like to see from the investment side is more discussion beforehand about how they're going to structure these things.
What about this British idea of actually putting shareholders on remuneration boards? Is that actually viable in the Australian context?
Look, to some extent, our directors are elected by shareholders, so they are actually representing the shareholder. So to some extent, I don't know that that would help. I think what is at issue here is there is it's been muddied. The issue's been muddied by the issue of absolute quantum and the structure of pay. And I think when you look at the Occupy movement and so on, a lot of that is around the sheer multiple of CEO pay to worker pay. I think you talked about how much executive pay has grown in the last sort of 17 years or so. That has outstripped the growth in worker pay by more, I think, 3.5 to 1. So that, I think, is beneath a lot of the angst around this issue.
And clearly communication is key too. I mean, why is it that some high-profile executives can command huge salary increases? Surely they would argue that this is money well spent.
Well, I think that all goes to your view of what is the executive labour market, and is it in fact an open, free and fair market? Now, I would argue in Australia, where I think 62% of ASX 200 companies don't have any female senior executives, that it's a market that's very much has artificial constraints. So that's just a more philosophical point, but I would say I'd like to see more imagination in the way we select executives and in the way we remunerate them, and I'd like to reflect some sort of ratio to worker pay that we would find gives them a social licence to operate.
But clearly to attract the best talent, you need to offer a good package.
Well, you need to offer a competitive package, but I think we'd say that a lot of the advice and the way that benchmarking is done has been very selective, and that has ratcheted pay up. And you will find many executives who get rewards other than pay for leading companies, and we think that should be focused on just as much.
Amanda Wilson, thanks for joining us.